We are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, opposed to secret oaths, opposed to secret proceedings, secret proceedings. No official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Conspiracy Corner Podcast. This is Abe, your host. I did do a little driving podcast today, so you might get a double whammy. If I finish editing this, I might get tired and honestly not put it out today, but finish the actual recording and save it for tomorrow. It is 8:10 a.m., January 6th, the big day. I'm curious to see what happens. I'm hopeful, that's all you can do. I think sometimes I think our brains could probably be a quantum computer and we control our own reality. And I like to give consent to realities that I want to be a part of and non-consent to realities I don't want to. It might sound crazy, but it's kind of like my version of praying, like not accepting certain negative realities that I dislike. I don't know, I guess that goes back to like what kind of like The Secret, I know that's like a lazy version, The Secret, from what I've heard, but you control your own reality, and if you don't like what you see, just will it out of existence, I guess, or will what you want into existence. I don't know. But yeah, today we are doing a second part to the Book of Enki. Well, it would be a third part to the Book of Enki because we've done a Book of Enki, the Cain and Abel Sumerian account. I'll leave a card at the end so you can check it out. But we are doing a second part to a specific story of Alalu. So let me kind of go check out the first part. I'll leave a card at the end. You can click on it if you want to check out part one. But we are in the middle of a ongoing series, but we are focusing strictly on Alalu. And now the Book of Enki, it kind of jumps around here and there, and I'm taking fragments from it to tell the story. So if this doesn't make it into, I took a fragment, this fragment, today's episode that is based off of. If it's not long enough, today will kind of be a double feature episode. We might do like a paranormal story at the end of the episode, so you guys get a full episode. But the book jumps around a lot, and so I didn't want to like continue reading. I don't know. It's just, it kind of left you at a cliffhanger the last episode, but I didn't do it just to be mean. I did it honestly because it's like, it just, you kind of feel when you're podcasting, you kind of feel the flow of things, and I got like a shorter fragment today, but it will be a full episode, but it'll be kind of like an ongoing series until we finish with Alalu, and then we can start with focusing maybe on Enki or the Great Flood. I mean, there's a lot in this book. It's pretty much like probably one of the best books you can get on the subject of ancient astronaut theory, specifically the Sumerian mythology, or Sumerian history if you choose to look at it that way. But yeah, people have been responding in the comments, letting me know exactly what they want, so it's like awesome, because I always try to ask, like, hey, what do you guys want to hear? Like, what's next on the agenda? I do have the next, like, let's see. Honestly, I've got like the next 4 or 5 episodes planned. I've got stuff planned for the future like crazy. Um, Next episode, I will probably do kind of more recent news. It falls under the alien category, but I try not to do like too many episodes on one subject back to back. But I do want to talk on this before it's old news. It's something that kind of flew under my radar a little bit, but it's not too old. It was last month that it happened, and I want to do a podcast on it next episode. And after that, I have a Native American mythology episode planned, because there was another person who commented. They commented on that specific episode, and they like the content. They like that it's very spread out as far as subjects and stuff. And if I say I'm going to do an episode, I will do an episode on it, as much as I can, unless I forget. I'm a little burnt out. But I will do an episode on something that I say I'm going to do an episode on. It might not come the next episode, so you got to kind of wait, because I'm trying to please everyone at once. I mean, it's not I don't have like a ginormous fan base, but I got plenty of fan base who speak up enough to kind of let me know, hey, what they like, and you know what I mean? So, all right. This is, oh, yeah. Sorry. Last episode, though, pretty much there was a duel between who gets the throne and Nibiru. Nibiru's kind of in distress. Their planet's falling apart physically. And Alalu lost basically the right to the crown and was scared that he was going to be killed. So he escaped on a ship. He flew towards Earth, went through the solar system. You got kind of a auditory tour through the solar system, and he landed on Earth. And that's where we left off, and that's where we're going to pick up again. Now, this is the account of how the olden times began, and of the era that in the annals of the golden era by name was known, and how from Nibiru to Earth the missions went the gold to obtain. The escape of Alalu from Nibiru was its beginning. So yeah, a little disclaimer, if you haven't noticed, whenever reading the Book of Enki, it's very kind of like poetic, because it's translation from cuneiform tablets. So, with great understanding was Alalu endowed, much knowledge he by learning acquired. By his forefather, Anshargal of the heavens, and the circuits much knowledge was amassed. So he learned astrology, or astronomy, I should say. By Inshar was knowledge greatly augmented. Of that Alalu made much learning, with the sages he discoursed, savants and commanders he consulted. Thus was knowledge of the beginning ascertained, thus did Alalu this knowledge pass. The gold in the hammered bracelet was the confirmation. The hammered bracelet is the asteroid belt. The gold in the hammered bracelet of gold in Tiamat's upper half was the indication. Now this gets on to the Enuma Elish, which I will make an episode on. What he's describing is basically Marduk came through, which was a planet, came through our solar system, kind of like the white ball in a pool game, knocked into all the other planets, kind of bounced around. Not all the other ones, but just kind of bounced around the solar system. I'll do a whole episode without spoiling it. Crashed into Earth. Marduk became Nibiru, which flew off, in its own orbit. Earth split into three different things: the asteroid belt, the moon, and Earth. So, kind of like playing marbles and you break your opponent's marble, you know? I don't know if I'm showing my age, if people even remember or know how to play marbles, but same thing. At the planet of gold, Alalu victoriously arrived, his chariot with a thunder crashing. With a beam he scanned the place, his whereabouts to discover. His chariot on dry land descended. At the edge of extended marshes it landed. Freudian slip. Thinking of Martians. He put on an eagle's helmet. He put on a fish's suit. The chariot's hatch he opened. At the open hatch he stopped to wonder. Now that's the depiction that you see if you're watching on YouTube of his helmet and his suit. It's kind of like a scuba diving suit with a eagle-shaped helmet. Now, if you look, the actual kind of, I guess, hieroglyph, it's an eagle-headed man. And ancient astronaut theorists believe that it's a helmet, you know? Kind of like if you've ever seen Stargate, how all these, like Ra and all these different warriors and stuff in the movie, their dog-like heads and stuff are actually just helmets and stuff like that. Style, I guess. Dark-hued was the ground, blue-white were the skies. No sound there was no one to bid him welcome. Alone on an alien planet he stood, perchance from Nibiru, forever exiled. To the ground himself he lowered, on the dark-hued soil he stepped. There were hills in the distance, nearby much vegetation there was. Ahead of him there were marshes. Into the marsh he stepped, by the water's coolness he shuddered. Back to the dry ground he stepped, alone on an alien planet he stood. With thoughts he was possessed, of spouse and offspring. With longing he remembered. Dude, you just got there and you're already homesick? Was he forever from Nibiru exiled? Of that again and again he wondered. To the chariot he soon returned, with food and drink to be sustained. Then deep sleep him overcame, a powerful slumber. I wonder if that's kind of like, I don't know, I guess jet lag. I've been on a plane, but I don't remember having jet lag, but I wonder if it's the same concept. When you travel space, you know, if you become like super tired after a trip. Makes sense, like you're going through G-forces and stuff. And now this is like not interdimensional travel. This isn't a long-term journey. This is actually short journey because Nibiru goes through, Planet X goes through our solar system. So a lot of the spaceships and stuff you'll hear like rockets and stuff like that, kind of like what we have, because Nibiru's closer than you think. You know, it doesn't need to go through light years and all that and basically bend space and time like a folded sheet of paper to reach its destination. It's a long travel, but it's not that long of a travel. To the chariot he soon returned. Okay. How long he slept he could not remember. What awakened him he could not tell. A brightness there was outside, a brilliance on Nibiru unseen. A pole from the chariot he extended. With a tester it was equipped. It breathed the planet's air. Compatibility it indicated. The chariot's hatch he opened. At the open hatch he took a breath. Another breath he took, then another, and another. The air of Ki, indeed, compatible was. Ki, Ki, is earth. Alalu clapped his hands, a song of joy he was singing. Without an eagle's helmet, without a fish's suit, to the ground himself he lowered. The brightness outside was blinding, the rays of sun were overpowering. Into the chariot he returned. a mask for the eyes he donned. He picked up the carried weapon, he picked up the handy sampler. To the ground himself he lowered, on the dark-hued soil he stepped. He made his way towards the marshes. Dark greenish were the waters. By the marsh's edge there were pebbles. Alalu picked a pebble. Into the marsh he thrust it. In the marsh a moving his eyes glimpsed. The waters with fishes were filled. Into the marsh the sampler he lowered, the murky waters to consider. For drinking the water was not fit. Alalu, greatly disappointing. He turned away from the marshes. In the direction of the hills he went. Yeah, dude, I mean, that's like common sense 101, man. You gotta have flowing water, not stagnant. You die if you do. So he's just kind of checking stuff out. Let's see. He turned away from the marshes. In the direction of the hills he went. He made his way through vegetation. Bushes to trees gave way. The place was like an orchard. The trees with fruits were laden. By their sweet smell enticed, Alalu picked a fruit. In his mouth he put in. Sweet was the smell, sweeter the taste was. Alalu greatly it delighted. Away from the sun's rays, Alalu was walking. Towards the hills he set his direction. Among the trees, a wetness under his feet he sensed, a sign of close-by waters. In the direction of the wetness he set his course. In the midst of the forest there was a pond, a pool of silent waters. Into the pond the sampler he lowered, for drinking the water was good. Alalu laughed, and unstopping laughter seized him. The air was good, the water for drinking was fit. There was fruit, there were fish. With eagerness, Alalu bent down. Together his hands he cupped. Water to his mouth he brought. A coolness did the water have, a taste from Nibiru's water different. Once more he drank, then with fright he asunder jumped. A hissing sound he could hear. A slithering body by the poolside was moving. His carried weapon he seized. A blast of its ray towards the hissing he directed. Pew, pew. Laser. I need a soundboard, man. That'd be awesome. The moving stopped. The hissing was ended. To examine the danger, Alalu stepped forward. The slithered body lay still. So was a snake. Dead was the creature, a sight most strange. Like a rope its long body was. Without hands or feet was the body. Fierce eyes were in its small head. Out of its mouth a long tongue was sticking. A sight on Nibiru never beheld it was. A creature of another world. Was it the orchard's guardian? Kind of like the snake in the Garden of Eden. Alalu by himself pondered. Was it the water's master? Himself he asked. In his carried flask he some water collected. With alertness to the chariot he made his way. The sweet fruits he also picked. To the chariot he set his course. The brightness of the sun's rays were greatly diminished. Darkness it was as the chariot he reached. The shortness of the day Alalu pondered. Its shortness him amazed. From the direction of the marshes. So it sounds like on Nibiru then the days are long. So I'm curious as to how long their days are. I can't recall. It's been years since I've studied this. Probably about 3 or 4 years. So this is a refresher for me. From the direction of the marshes, a cool lightness on the horizon was rising. A white-hued ball in the heavens was quickly rising. Kingu, the earth's companion, he now beheld. Kingu is the moon. What in the accounts of the beginning his eyes the truth could now see. The planets and their circuits, the hammered bracelet, key, the earth, Kingu, its moon. All created were, all by names were called. In the earth, in his heart, Alalu knew one more truth a beholding needed. The gold, the means of salvation, to be found was needed. If truth be in the beginning tales, if by the waters the golden veins of Tiamat were washed, in the waters of Ki, its cut off half, gold must be found. With hands unsteady, Alalu the tester from the chariot's pole dismantled. With trembling hands the fish's suit he donned, the fast arriving daylight eagerly awaiting. At daybreak the chariot he exited, to the marshes he quickly stepped. Into deeper waters he waded, the tester into the waters he inserted. Its illuminated face he eagerly watched. In his chest his heart was pounding. The water's content was the tester indicating, by symbols and numbers its findings disclosing. Then Alalu's heartbeat stopped. There is gold in the water, the tester was telling. Unsteady on his legs, Alalu stepped forward. Deeper into the marshes he made his way. Again he the tester into the waters inserted. Again the tester, gold announced. A cry of triumph from Alalu's throat imanted. Nibiru's fate in his own hands now was. Back to the chariot he made his way. The fish's suit he took off. The commander's seat he occupied. The tablets of destinies that knows all circuits he enlivened. To Nibiru, circuit to find the direction. The speaker of words he stirred up. Toward Nibiru the words to carry. Then to Nibiru words he uttered. Thus he was saying. The words of the great Alalu to Anu on Nibiru are directed. On another world I am. The gold of salvation I have found. The fate of Nibiru is in my hands. To my conditions you must give heed. So there you have it. He found gold. Found gold in the marshes. Like I said before in the last episode, if you haven't heard it, I can kind of explain it a little bit to you. But the gold is what they were needing to shoot up into the atmosphere. Kind of honestly like what we're doing now, which is actually not even a conspiracy. It's been admitted that we're shooting aluminum up into ours, which kind of makes sense because if the Anunnaki came here and took all the gold, or most of it, we don't have enough gold to shoot up into our own atmosphere, which is basically we are going through exactly what Nibiru was going through. But they got all the gold and left. We got left with nothing. But yeah, something about the gold particles getting shot up into the atmosphere kind of like preserves or saves their atmosphere. There's also a theory too that the gold is, you can consume gold and it's actually kind of their key to immortality. On not that they're immortal or invincible, but they live for years and years and years and years. I mean, you can look at the King's List, which is a cuneiform tablet, which describes that they live for like hundreds, if not thousands of years, you know. And people are like, oh, that's absurd. That can't be right. You know, well, if you're a demigod, essentially, an alien, you know, and I can imagine you could live hundreds, if not thousands of years, perhaps. But yeah, that's wild, right? But alright, guys, we're going to finish this episode off with a little, a shorter ghost story for the people who like paranormal. But yeah, this is called The House of Spirits, the Myrtles, St. Francisville, Louisiana. St. Francisville, Louisiana is a charming old town some 70 miles north of New Orleans. It is built on a narrow ridge and said to be 2 miles long and 2 yards wide. There are many beautiful plantation homes there, but the only one with eerie happenings that have reverberated throughout America is the Myrtles. The Myrtles has been featured in Life magazine, Southern Living, The Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Family Circle, and many other publications. Many television networks have also done features on this house. The Myrtles is also, according to the U.S. Tourist Bureau, one of the authenticated haunted houses of America, and it has sometimes been called America's most haunted house. So that's quite a claim. The Myrtles contains some of the most interesting architecture in the South. The outside of the home, built by General David Bradford in 1796, has lacy ornamental ironwork, and within the large rooms, with their high ceilings, are graced by outstanding plaster friezes. It is surrounded by immense oak trees, dripping with Spanish moss. We used to have Spanish moss in Florida. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that wherever you're at. It's kind of neat. And beneath their shade, the house appears to be in perpetual twilight. Unlike other houses to me, the Myrtles is an entity, says its owner, Francis Kermeen. How did a vivacious blonde from the West Coast with hazel eyes and attractive smile, and the voice of an engaging teenager become the owner of a house like this? And what eerie experiences has she encountered? Miss Kermeen shares her story. While I was on a cruise to Jamaica and Haiti, and then on to Acapulco, I became friendly with a couple who talked me into skipping Acapulco and coming back to Louisiana with them. That's why they got Spanish moss. There you go, Louisiana. Because there is such a lovely place, and really, just for fun, I decided to look at real estate. The day I was looking was the day that the listing on the Myrtles came into the office. I later found out that the couple who lived directly behind my parents' house in San Jose had gone on the same cruise I had, though 20 years earlier, and had stopped in St. Francisville on their way back to Michigan. The house happened to be for sale at the time, and they bought it under almost identical circumstances. The first day in the real estate office, as we were going out to look at the house, the realtor kept calling me Sarah, although I corrected her several times. Neither of us were aware of it, but later I found that 2 Sarahs had lived here in the 1800s. But I went into the place for the first time. I heard a woman's voice calling my name. At first I thought it was the realtor, but she was outside trying the back door key to be sure that it worked. After I left, I knew I would be buying that house, and I cried some that night as I realized that from now on I would be far from my family and home. As I think about everything that happened, I feel that fate, I prefer to call it God, has played an important part in the events of my life. I also think that places exert a strong pull on certain individuals, and I will always believe that this house chose me. The first week that I was there, I was sleeping in an upstairs bedroom. I left the lights on. But when the switch set on dim after a night or two, I thought that was silly, and that I could sleep with the lights off, so I turned them off. But sometime after midnight, I woke up, and the lights were on bright. Half asleep, I thought I must have left them on, and I turned the dimmer. The room was once more in darkness. 2 hours passed, and I was again awakened I found all the lights in the room on bright, just as they had been 2 hours earlier. I turned the switch 360 degrees and clicked the lights off again. Later I woke up for a third time, and the lights were on once more. That just scared me to death, and I grabbed my robe and blanket to go downstairs and sleep in the sitting room. All went fine, and I slept peacefully until about 5 o'clock a.m., when I woke up with a start and had a feeling that someone was looking at me. I stared up into the face of a large black lady whose head was wrapped in a green turban. She wore something that resembled a long green dressing gown. I was so shocked that I couldn't look at her face again. By that time I had begun screaming, but she still didn't go away. Involuntarily, I struck out with my arm to push her from me, but as I did so, my hand passed through her, and she faded away. It was a couple of days before the closing on the house, and the current owner was still there. I told her about it the next day, and she said, "That's ridiculous." But even on the first night, at about 1 o'clock, I heard footsteps outside my door and assumed that it was one of the other house guests. The next day I learned that everyone in the house claimed to have been dead to the world before 11. Later I found the whole town knew that the house was haunted, but they weren't going to tell me, an out-of-state person who was thinking about buying it. After I had bought the house, I mentioned the lady in the green to the mother of the former owner, and to my surprise she was absolutely thrilled. "Can you imagine?" she said. "Why, Francis, you have seen the Myrtle's most famous ghost." I turned the house into a bed and breakfast place, and at first I tried to keep the ghostly visitors a secret from the real ones. But during the 7 years I have been here, there have been about 100 reports each year of apparitions or some supernatural occurrences. There were times when I was truly frightened, and the only thing that kept me from going back to my parents was that it would be too embarrassing to tell them that I was leaving because I was afraid of ghosts. The most common sounds are either those of children's voices at play or that of a baby crying. But the eeriest of all is the music of a dance going on downstairs. Often people think that another guest television is on too loud, but on inquiring they find there is no television set in the room next to them. Each room has its own unique ghost. One has a wounded Confederate soldier who appears in May and June. So it sounds like a residual haunting. A pair of honeymooners stayed here. The groom went upstairs alone to lie down and woke to find a black servant standing beside the bed bandaging his foot. The honeymooners immediately checked out. The plantation's most famous murders occurred shortly after its sale in 1817 to a philandering judge named Clark Woodruff, General Bradford's son-in-law. The judge grew angry with a slave woman named Cleo for eavesdropping, and he cut off one of her ears as a penalty. For revenge, she mixed poisonous oleander flowers into a birthday cake for the judge's oldest daughter. His 2 little girls died, as did his wife. Other slaves hanged Cleo. It is said that she still haunts the house, wearing a green turban to cover her missing ear. Cleo was evidently the ghost who frightened Frances Kierman during her first week in the house. Jeanette Roberts, a psychic, who is the treasurer of the Louisiana Society for Physical Phenomenon, believes that the Myrtles has many ghosts. Walking into the parlor was like walking into a crowded cocktail party. I felt that we were literally bumping into people, and I wanted to say, "Excuse me," but except for the grumpy ghost who will occasionally hurl a clock or drop a candlestick, they do no harm. Mrs. Kierman says, "At first I would not stay here alone at night. After I made it into the B&B in 1981, that seldom happened. But there are still a few things that rile me, and when they do, I have to go spend the night in the new wing. Asked if she ever talked with any other apparitions, Miss Kierman shakes her head. I certainly am not brave enough to try and communicate with any of them. I got used to the footsteps, the door slamming, and the voices, so now I don't keep my hand on the phone ready to dial the police as I did at first. I know this sounds absurd, but it's funny when you later come to accept when you don't believe in this sort of thing at all before. About 75% of the people who come here do so because they want to hear about our ghost. The other 25% just happen upon it. Oddly enough, the ones who get scared and want to check out in the middle of the night are sometimes the big macho type men. What sort of person is most apt to have supernatural experience, says Miss Kierman. It is usually the skeptic or the one who isn't expecting anything to happen. When people have been so eager to see a ghost and then report it, I wonder if it isn't their imagination. She continues, there have been 10 murders here at the Myrtles, and that's quite a few, even for a house that is almost 200 years old. I think some of those poor tragic victims may have been the ghost I have seen. I believe that this house sets off intense emotions in the people who live here for any length of time. The overseer of this plantation in 1850 was a white man, 24 years old, and he committed suicide. I later hired a young man of 24 who tried the same thing. Fortunately, he was unsuccessful. He may have been unstable from the beginning, but some people are very impressionable. I don't hire men at that age anymore. I try to hire happy people, and I have always been a healthy, happy person myself. Most visitors who come here seem to leave content and rested. At least I think they do, for a great many return each year. At first the ghost terrified me. Then there was a year or two when the knowledge that they were there, just fun and games, but of late I really believe that they have led me to God. They have brought me closer to a sense of His reality and the meaning of life. Once you are confronted with a ghost, you can't brush off the existence of life after death. For more information, if you want to visit this place, write the Myrtles Plantation, Highway 61, P.O. Box 387, St. Francisville, Louisiana 70775, or call, if the number still works, 504-635-6277. Thank you all for tuning in to Conspiracy Corner Podcast. This is Abe Williams signing out. Y'all have a good day.
We are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, opposed to secret oaths, opposed to secret proceedings. No official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.